and TV, and this is the 2023 intern summer broadcast for Academy of Broadcasting. Please feel free to call in at 617-282-0685.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ross, and today you are tuning to our second AOB podcast. Today we're going to be talking about different topics that we think are for teens by teens. So I'm going to present y'all to Jeremy and Noel.
Hello, my name is Jeremy and I'm 14.
Hi, my name is Noel and I'm 15.
Today, our news topic is about climate change, specifically because of the current events that are happening more frequently. For example, the hurricane season has already started, with there already being a hurricane in the ocean. Glaciers and ice sheets are shrinking, sea levels are rising, and there are more intense heat waves. The fires in Canada and California are preparing for those same fires too. There was even a tornado warning in New England for the first time since 2011.
So, true, Jeremy. This one that had touched down in North Brookfield, Massachusetts, measured a EF0. These changes to the Earth's climate are driven by an increase in human emissions. The emissions are damaging the ozone layer in the atmosphere, which is what produces the Earth from not being put on fire by the sun. But because the ozone layer is being damaged, the Earth's average temperature is getting hotter and hotter. There have been more catastrophic events that are happening in real time.
Did you know that the hottest day ever recorded on Earth was on July 5th? It was only a couple weeks ago. Also, there was 112 people in New Mexico who died from the intense heat. It's only the start of summer, and it only gets worse from here.
Yeah, I remember reading that somewhere. Climate change is no longer a problem of the future, it's a problem now. In the Associated Press on the 13th of July, it was reported that 1/3 of Americans from California to the Southwest are under a heat alert, and there is no sight in the end.
The greenhouse gases are at an all-time high. Everything is going wild, from big glaciers melting to very intense heat waves. There's a danger of increase in deaths and illnesses related to 3-digit consistent temperatures in Arizona and Texas, specifically in the last 15 days.
Meteorologists are looking at the weather more closely and what is to be expected around El Niño. To sum it up, El Niño usually happens every 2 to 7 years and causes strong, stormy weather and makes the temperature of the earth hotter. But this year, it could be stronger than it has ever been.
The northern part of the United States will become drier, while the southern part of the United States and Gulf of Mexico will become wetter with more precipitation. All of the fossil fuels people are burning is only making matters worse.
Back in my day, we used to get 15 inches of snow. Now we only get like 4 inches. Boston is known for its winters, but now we have lost what we were known for.
Yeah, it is sad. We can't stop climate change too, but it's good to know people are finding ways to slow it down.
You know those huge fans that stand in the fields? They create energy by using their propellers, so as long as there's wind, there will be reusable energy. People can also use solar panels, which use energy from the sun to power their house.
Electric cars leave as little emissions as possible because they don't run on oil, which takes time and fossil fuels to get.
Those same fossil fuels that are being burned are one of the main reasons climate change is as bad as it is today. It's also the reason why people are finding things that your everyday person could do to slow down climate change.
Your everyday person could also help the cause by walking, riding a bike, or taking public transit to make a difference in their community.
Together, we can join together to stop climate change by doing simple things like recycling, investing in energy-efficient appliances, and by spreading the word will result in a better Earth.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't get any snow days. Did y'all get any snow days last year?
No, I didn't.
I think I got one.
Yeah,
I got one.
Yeah, I usually get like 3 last year. I don't know. So, my name is Ross. I'm 15, and Kami is gonna tell you where we are listening and what I'm about to talk about.
You are listening to WBPG-LP 102.9 FM. And next, Ross is about to talk about his topic, which is about
Forgotten African American history. So, we were not initially taught about Black nor African American history in schools, as well as through our jobs, movies, and different books and different courses in college. It was something we had to fight for and still do today, as in Florida. Some of the basic and important events in Black history that everyone is most likely aware about are Dr. Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech, Malcolm X's Ballot of the Bullet speech, and the celebration of Juneteenth when African Americans were granted emancipation from slavery. Some heroes in Black history that shaped our culture, heritage, and history are unknown in general, or are simply gone and forgotten. They are buried in dusty archives and not revealed to the generations of today, and rarely spoken about to youth like myself. These moments that I will present will explain and expose some heroes and incidents that you have perhaps not heard of. So, my first incident is the hijacking of a Confederate ship. So, Robert Smalls was an African American politician, businessman, and publisher who from 1862 was enslaved. Robert Smalls feared that his family would be sold away, so during the night of May 13th, 1862, Robert Smalls, along with 16 other slaves, hijacked one of the most important Confederate ships in South Carolina. In amazing bravery, Robert Smalls, along with 16 other runaway slaves and their families, sailed from South Carolina to the free waters of Charleston Harbor. Smalls guided the ship past the 5 Confederate harbor forts without incident. The story of the courageous escape of Smalls became a national phenomenon and was one of the factors encouraging President Abraham Lincoln to authorize free African Americans to serve in the Union military. Congress bestowed a $1,500 cash prize on Smalls, and he went on a speaking tour recounting his heroics in recruiting African Americans to serve in the Union Army. During the rest of the war, Smalls balanced his role as a spokesperson and Union Navy captain on the vessel, the Planner, and the ironclad USS Keokuk, conducting 17 missions in and around Charleston. Smalls ended becoming the U.S. House of Representatives and later died of natural causes on February 23, 1915. So, after hearing this story, Robert Smalls did everything to get his freedom. How important is it to you, is freedom in society?
It's pretty important because you have to, like, if you have freedom, you could do anything that your mind, like, pleases or wants to do.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important to have a free will in your society.
I also think it's not just about being just free. I think it also has to do with also with your free speech, because I feel like a lot of people don't have a voice or feel as though they might not have a voice. So being able to know that you have those rights is good.
Yeah, it just inspires me that he did everything in his power just to allow his family to be free and not face the consequence of it. And he had a lot of courage, just breaking the barriers and having the courage to sail from where he was enslaved to Charleston, and then being able to do it for a bigger cause like the Revolutionary War. And the second question is, how does Robert Smalls influence you today?
He really makes me appreciate Black history and the things that African Americans could have done in the past to help us today.
I think it makes me feel as though like I am able to pretty much be able to do whatever my mind is kind of set on, and whatever pretty much I want to do, I can do it.
Of course. And you are listening to WBPG-LP 102.9 FM here on Boston Praise Radio TV. So my second story is Elizabeth Freeman sues Colonel Ashley. So Elizabeth Freeman, nicknamed Mom-Bet, was born into slavery in 1742 and was given to the Ashley family of Sheffield, Massachusetts in her early teens. While enslaved, she married and eventually had a daughter named Betsy. One day in 1780, Mrs. Ashley accused Betsy of being a thief and chased her around with a hot shovel. Freeman jumped in between, obviously, to save her daughter, just as Ashley was swinging, and blocked the shovel with her arm. Freeman received a deep wound on her arm and displayed the scar her entire life as a proof of her poor treatment. But after this Revolutionary War, Freeman was walking through the town and heard the Massachusetts state constitution being read aloud. After hearing it, and the specific quote, "all men are created equal," she thought about the legal and spiritual meaning of these words. She met with Theodore Sedgwick, an attorney and abolitionist she knew, and asked to sue for her freedom. He took her case, but because women at the time had very few legal rights, Sedgwick added a male slave known as Brom to the lawsuit and sued Colonel Ashley. So, in the case of Brom and Bet versus Ashley, Sedgwick argued that based on the Constitution, she and Brom shouldn't be considered property and therefore should be free. The jury in the Court of Common Pleas decided in their favor. Colonel Ashley appealed to the Supreme Court but later dropped the appeal, making Mom-Bet the first female slave to sue and win her freedom. And my final story is the Ocoee Massacre. So, the city of Ocoee back in 1920 was politically dominated by Democratic white supremacists, and their one and only goal was to keep African Americans of the city away from the polls. Different voter campaigns were open because of this, even though African Americans weren't given the right to vote in Florida. So a local farmer, Mose Brown, caught wind of this. He was also part of a different voter campaign. So on November 2nd of 1920, Mose Brown decided to go vote. But the two times he went to vote, he was driven out by angry white mobs. So after a second attempt, the white mob, which was made up of about 100 men, decided to hunt him down. Mose Brown decided to hide at his friend's house, July Perry. So the white mobs stormed the house, attempting to kill both men and Perry's family. Mose escaped while July Perry tried to push them off, shooting two men who attempted to come in the back door. The white mob murdered Perry and hung his body on a light post. The mob then turned on the black community of Ocoee. They burned down homes, businesses, and demanded that the black residents leave Ocoee. In the face of this threat and violence, the entire African American population fled the town. Some African Americans speculated that the rioting may have been planned so that some whites could seize the property of the wealthiest blacks in the town. Mose Brown and July Perry were pioneers for black voters everywhere. So, by 1969, the black vote rose by 61% and finally allowed African Americans to vote fairly and not be intimidated and scared off by white mobs. So, after hearing this, how do you feel about voting in politics, especially after hearing the story of a black man actually fighting for the right to vote?
I think that it's really important to have the right to vote. So, and they knew that too, so that's why they fought that hard for it.
Yeah, it's pretty important for everyone to be able to vote, because if you're living somewhere, you want to be able to have the ability to have a say in who is in charge.
I agree. I think it's important, and also because I feel like it also ties in with what you were talking about with your last story and freedom and stuff. And I feel like with that, it kind of all is basically put in one. So
Yeah, I agree. With the first story about Robert Smalls, it definitely ties into this one because both of them had the courage to fight for what they believe in, and something terrible could have happened to Robert Smalls, and something terrible did happen to July Perry. But all of this pioneered for what us African Americans, and more specifically African American teenagers, can do can do in the future. The next question is: do you plan to register at 18, and do you think all young people should?
I think that, I will register to vote, and I also think that it's important for young people to vote because they can vote for people that they believe will benefit their future in their life.
I agree. I would definitely register to vote at 18. And like Jeremy was saying, I just think it's really good for people that are our age, and when they start, getting older and they become, the legal age to vote, I think that they should register to vote because it's good to have a say in your community and what's going to happen with your community and in the world.
Yeah, me too. And it also shows how far they've come, from not being able to vote to being able to vote, but being intimidated and berated by different white mobs, to now us being able to vote at 18. So I think it is very important. So I found all of this at history.howstuffworks.com/American history/Black history we didn't learn in school. And see, this is something we will talk about more about at some point in our segment on about youth politics.
Executive producer, there's some live comments online I think might be worth mentioning since we don't have some calls maybe.
You talking about Facebook? Okay, we'll try to read some of these. I'll turn my mic on so they can hear me. Ed Kennedy, after hearing these stories of struggles of African American people, how does it make you feel to see the way today generations treat each other?
Yeah, I see where it's coming from, how we've kind of separated ourselves from the important cause, all of these stories about different African Americans fighting for freedom compared to us fighting each other and losing our freedom in some different ways. But yeah, I think we do need to work on that though.
I agree. I think we definitely have a lot of struggles going on between the teen community and just the community in general not being able to get along or even be able to respect each other in any type of way. So
Pastor Karen, who's watching, she only says yes with an exclamation point. And I have one other person, Tina Lee out of New York, is saying blessings to all of you. She's expressing her support for the broadcast, and I'm sure more will be showing up shortly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And don't forget, you are listening to WBPG-LP 102.9 FM, Boston Praise Radio. And yeah. And for future broadcasts, you're listening here. Next week we're gonna be doing a live performance of improv about our experience during COVID-19. And yeah, Camille's gonna be playing the daughter. I'm gonna be the dad. Noel's gonna be the grandfather, and Jeremy's gonna be cousin Johnny that no one really likes. But we're not gonna talk about that until next week.
So, are they going to be wearing makeup? If you're going to be a grandpa, is the hair going to be black and white? How are you going to do that?
Say like a style
Like,
of radio drama.
oh my
Fashion radio drama.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be doing that. But,
Say it's gonna be like the style of
Yeah.
a radio drama.
yeah, it's gonna be like our own style of a radio drama, and it's gonna be our first time doing it. We've been practicing for about 2 weeks, and Cameron, if you're listening, we miss you. We were gonna do it this week, but we're gonna do it next week and wait for Cameron.
Good.
And then have a post discussion and comments.
And then have a post discussion about it, and talk about like our experiences. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And how about some of the other topics that we're gonna talk about? And maybe talk about the shooting last week, how y'all just felt about illegal guns, maybe just to wrap up.
They
the
can't hear
topic.
you, Anita.
He can't.
That's dead end.
Yeah.
So, can you respond to what she's saying, somebody? I didn't hear you.
Illegal guns, we did some sound bites, you don't have to say, just say like, you know, how we talked about that as a broadcast company, we'll be talking about current events, and like we recently we even doing some public service announcements about government stuff, and we're going to be talking about elections, important voting, how we want our representatives to hear our voice about how we feel about guns and voting and representation and busing, and even the reversal on about equal representation and rights to schools and everything. So y'all can talk a little bit about that. Anybody want to say anything? Just give a little comment. You don't have to, but
For me, about the gun violence, we did talk about it last week, and it is still a really important topic, and I feel like we should definitely talk about it more. And also because like teens our age are losing their lives over like things that aren't even important, nor are they even something that teens should even be worried about. So
Yeah, I agree. And like mostly like about last week about the 12-year-old boy who was shot by his own brother. It kind of ties into me. My father had to go to work for that. It kind of shows like a divide in a way. Like the only thing that is being talked about African American teenagers from ages like 12 to 18 is like gun violence, and I would like that to change, even if we have to like go places in government anyway. But I want to change the image. That's what I want to do personally, because I don't just want African American teenagers, boys and girls, just being about that. So, yeah.
how about even about water safety? There's been a lot of drownings lately. We've had kids drowning that have mental health issues or autism, being left alone. They're talking about even doing monitors to help with that, or even just about there's been a lack of lifeguards at water pools, and we've got this heat wave going on. As young people, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, we just need like more programs, definitely, and well, obviously more young people going to work as a lifeguard to save kids like this. And even like you said with like autism and mental health, I'm pretty sure that's going to be one of our topics later. But for now, we just need to open more programs to be more open to it. Like like I said before, that's another image that is being shined on us. That's like what this whole generation is.
How many of you know how to swim?
I know how to swim.
I know how to swim.
I don't.
Yeah. I'll save you, Jeremy.
Okay, so that's something to look at. Where's our Y in our Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah, I definitely think that we
Swimming
should.
lessons.
I definitely think that there should be like programs for kids where they can go swimming, because learning how to swim is really important, and you never know when you're really gonna need it, because like anything can happen. So
Okay. That's a good topic to look at. So why don't y'all get ready to wrap it up? Each of you give your final word for today on your topic, and encourage your listeners to tune in next week. Let's start with Jeremy and then go around. Go ahead, Jeremy. Just give a final word, how you felt about your topic today, and pass it on.
Our topic again was that me and Noel talked about was about climate change, and it's like getting worse over time. As Noel said, that it's not a problem for the future, it's a problem now, and there should be more stuff done about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad we got to talk about that, because more people need to be aware of what's going on with climate change and do things to slow it down.
Yeah, my topic was about forgotten African American history. I think it's important that we indulge in like learning about this type of stuff, because like I said before, it's kept in like dusty archives, and we should learn more about this topic.
well, for me, I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed all of you guys' topics, for one, and two, for next week, my topic was going to be about self-image, so just wanted to let you guys know to stay tuned into that, and to thank you for listening for at WBPG-LP radio, and yeah.
Before you go, you have one phone call, so we might as well take this call before we say goodbye. Caller, go ahead, you're live.
Good morning, teens. I have a question for all of you. Do any of you ever have conversations with your non-black friends about race? And if you do, how do you walk away from that conversation feeling?
I could say for me, because I go to school, I'm in Mecco and I go to school in Reading, so I do go to school with predominantly white people. And I think for me, I just think that when I have conversations with my friends that aren't black, it usually goes pretty good, but I just think a lot of people are scared to say things that they feel might be offensive. So I think it's good, but at the same time, when I walk away from those conversations, I also feel as though like I'm not fully understood, or like I'm not fully understanding maybe their perspective, because they're not wanting to speak up on how they feel because they don't want to be offensive.
Yeah, I agree with Camille in some aspects of what she said. At my school, well, at my old school, it was a predominantly white population. But in terms of race, when we would talk about it, I didn't come out uncomfortable or like misunderstood. I would come out like, I think I changed something, like, because I feel like what I said like really got to them. Like, my friends are really open about everything we do. So even if it's about like a topic of race, they understand what I'm saying. They take what I say into account, and yeah.
Awesome.
I don't even have white friends, so because I go to a predominantly black school, where it's like my whole grade is basically just black, like the black races, and so yeah, I don't really have anything to say about it.
Oh, so Yeah, I don't want to say I go to a like dominantly white school. It's like a semi-ish, but yeah. Same way when I talk to my friends about it, it's not anything like crazy. But I do know that some people, like when white people, some people are talking to black people, they would have like sympathy, kind of, where they would try to be extra nice to them.
Or like try to avoid what, like,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for calling, by the way. Thanks for the question.
You're very welcome. You guys are doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to end this off, we want to say thank you again for listening to WBPG-LP 102.9 FM radio. And this is the 2023 intern summer for broadcast. And thank you.
Praise Him. Dance before the Lord. Give Him the praise. Good God Almighty. Praise Him. When I think of what the Lord has done, I give Him a praise. Yeah. Come on, children, give Him the highest praise. Praise Him. He's worthy. From my lips, He's honored. Praise the we will praise. The honor. He give Him the glory. Yeah. I tell you that you are the one. Nobody but you. Nobody. You are the one. Nobody but you. Nobody but you, Lord. Hallelujah. We give you the praise in this house tonight. We give you the glory in this place today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Wintley Phipps. I was unconscious when they gave it to me. And at the age of 14 years old, I woke up one morning talking like this. It really messed up my father. If you can imagine your 14-year-old going, "Hey, Dad, how you doing this morning?" Not long ago, I ran into James Earl Jones, and I couldn't resist. I walked up to him and I said, "This is CNN." And he said, "How long have you had that?" It is so exciting to be here tonight. I want to thank the president of this great organization and my dear friend Willie Jolly. I see he's here, and it's just awesome to be in such a remarkable group of people. And for the next few moments, I'm just going to share, like I always do. One of my favorite quotes comes from one of my heroes of history. I'll talk about him in a little bit, Sir Winston Churchill, who once said that for a message to be immortal, it does not have to be eternal. And so for the next few moments, I'll just share as I am led. First, I want to tell you that it is an amazing gift. What I'm about to tell you can only happen in America. The story I'm about to tell you could only happen in America. My resume is really weird, very eclectic. You'll see on the same page Billy Graham Crusades and Saturday Night Live. You'll see Robert Schuller's Hour of Power, and you'll see Soul Train. Now, I know most of y'all have no idea what Soul Train is. Oh, I guess I got some boomers out here. But a man called me one day. He says, "Sir, I heard you sing this song about giving your life to God." I sing inspirational music. He said, "I want you to sing that song on Soul Train." And I said to myself, how is this man going to get me on Soul Train? Because that's all I've done is inspirational music. You see, I learned that you don't have to compromise to be recognized. I've learned that. And so he called up the host, Don Cornelius, and said, "I want you to put this young man on Soul Train." Don Cornelius said, "I'm sorry, I can't put anything religious on Soul Train." And the gentleman said, "Look, Don, all you got is young people dressed funny and, bumping into each other. And what this young man is trying to say in his music, those are the very young people who need to hear it." And Don Cornelius said, "I'm sorry, sir, I can't put anything religious on Soul Train." And the man said, "Listen, Don, my name is George Johnson of Johnson Products Company, Ultra Sheen, Afro Sheen, and my company's been backing your show for the last 8 years. Next thing I knew, I was the first gospel artist on Soul Train." And it has been a remarkable ride, only here in America. I was born in Trinidad in the Caribbean, and at the age of 10, my family moved to Montreal, Canada, where I grew up. Some Canucks out here. And to be a part of my new family and my new country, I joined a hockey team. And they made me goalie because I couldn't skate far. For those of you who didn't get that, that's the equivalent of Jamaican bobsled, you know what I mean? And I was actually born to a very difficult family situation, and I used to get away from my parents' troubles. I had a little red tricycle, and I'd go in the backyard of my house and turn the tricycle on its side and use one of the backside wheels as a steering wheel. And I would sit there for hours, and I would dream that I was flying and driving to far away places in the world and meeting important people when I was 4 and 5 and 6 years old. When we moved to Montreal, I'll never forget, my father used to take us to the airport to say goodbye to people who were going back. You remember when going to the airport was a big thing? You'd pack a lunch. My father took us to the airport to say goodbye to people, and before leaving the airport, I'd look around to see if anybody was looking. I would grab a handful of the luggage tags and stuff them in my pocket. And I go home and close the door and get a pencil and print my name, Wintley Phipps, flight 393 London, flight 676 Paris. And growing up in all this confusion, all my life, however, I have had heroes who have mentored me. Some of them I've never met. Sir Winston Churchill was a hero who mentored me. I'll never forget, in 1995, I took a trip to his grave site beside a little church in Oxford, in England. And it was VE Day, 50 years after the fall of the German Reich. And I'll never forget, I was by this grave site, and there were floral tributes that had been left earlier that morning before I got there by freedom fighters from Greece and France and Norway who 50 years later could not forget what Sir Winston Churchill meant to the world in a critical hour of Earth's history. But there was one tribute that I did not disturb, but I read it. It was obviously written by an American. It was on a single sheet of paper, handwritten, an American flag in the corner. And this American was thanking Sir Winston Churchill for what he meant to the world. And in it, he closed with words of John F. Kennedy about Sir Winston Churchill, who once said of Churchill, he commissioned the English language and sent it off to war. And that's what you do. Commission language and send it off to war. Some of the heroes I've never met. George Washington Carver. Did a documentary on his life. You know who he is? He invented peanut butter. Probably your hero too. But he said one day, he asked God to show him the mysteries of creation. And God told him, you can't handle the mysteries of creation. Ask for something you can handle. He said, then he asked God, show me the mysteries of the peanut. Another one of my heroes was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I remember sitting watching a film, Montgomery to Memphis, black and white, and hear this speech, I Have a Dream, and heard pathos like I'd never heard it before. And I resolved in my heart, I wanted to be like that kind of man who was willing to even die for what he believed. I've had heroes that I've never met. Hey, I never met him, but Luther Vandross was one of my heroes. Oh my goodness. That man could paint 1,000 colors in one song. Can I tell you something about singers that you may never know? Every singer in every song makes mistakes. But the great ones know how to make a stumble look like a pirouette. The great ones dazzle you with their recovery. And then I've had heroes that I've met and I've worked with that it's been my joy to know. I was the last one to sing Amazing Grace for Mother Teresa before she died. I was in the crowd that welcomed Nelson Mandela when he came out of prison. I was on an Eastern Airlines flight you remember them, years ago. Los Angeles to Atlanta, big L-1011. Always used to fly like that, you know. And I saw this lady and flight attendant. She looked a little discouraged. So I went back to my seat and I got a cassette of my first album. You remember cassettes? And I said to her, I just feel impressed to give this to you. The kind of music I sing is inspirational music. She said, thank you so much. She said, I travel with a cassette player. And she said, thank you. I've been having a rough time, and this will be really a blessing. 3 days later, she's working another flight and runs into a man who's on the flight by the name of Cliff Barrows, who directed all the choirs and the music for the Billy Graham Crusades for about 50 years. She says, Mr. Barrows, it's such an honor to have you on my flight. She said, but can I ask you something? Have you ever heard of a young man by the name of Wintley Phipps? He said, no, I've never heard of him. She says, hold on a minute. She went to her purse and got that cassette and handed it to him, saying, this has been a blessing to me, but I want you to have it. 3 weeks later, I got a call from Cliff Barrows saying, we want you to become one of the soloists with the Billy Graham Crusades. And for 25 years, it has been my honor to travel all over this country and some other parts of the world with a great hero of mine. And so some of the heroes I've met, and some I haven't. One of the things I must tell you about those heroes, though, they inspired me to dream. They inspired me to dream. But my greatest heroes are names you may never know. Elaine, that was my mother's name. When she saw that I had this gift and drive, she wanted to channel it right. So she bought me some Temptations cassettes. And I became the Temptations